Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying the conference so far today. We've got a lot of great speakers so far, and we've got three more fantastic speakers for you lined up. The first one here is Eric Nantz, who has worked for the last 11 years at Eli Lilly and Company as a research scientist, but now as a director. He is the creator, host, and producer of the R podcast and the Shiny Dev series. And for anybody who doesn't know Eric, he's essentially a staple in the Shiny community. And as you may see from how he presents himself, if you're not aware, he's also one of the nicest people I've ever had the opportunity to meet. So he's going to be speaking to us about adding a little power to a Shiny Racing League. And Eric, I give the mic to you.
Well, hello. Thanks for that awesome introduction. Hopefully, y'all can hear me okay. Looking good on your side?
Yeah, sounds good.
All
Good to go.
right. I am. All right. Well, I'm ready to get the engine started here. And first of all, thank you, Ian, and the rest of your fine team at Absalom for inviting me to give you this talk today. And I'm going to have a lot of fun with this, but I'm going to tell you all about how Shiny and R fueled an online racing league. And so you already heard a great talk earlier about gaming with Shiny. Now we're going to use Shiny to actually analyze parts of results from a video game. So, where did this all come about? Um, Hold on a second. There we go. So I've become a nice member of a very nice community for one of my other hobbies besides R and data science, and that's Linux. And there's a great folks of friends from all over the world that have taught me so much about software development and frankly geeking out about technology. And the one in the upper left there, Martin Wimpress, happens to be an author of one of my favorite Linux distributions called Ubuntu Mate. And he actually gave me a lot of insights into how I could actually level up my media content production with live streaming. So I would ask him for advice. And then I noticed that he was starting a fun little event on the weekends for all of us. And that was racing, online racing. And so he had discovered this really fun retro inspired racing game called HOTSHOT Racing. And I will show you a little bit this in action. I don't think it'll, oh, maybe it is showing on the screen. Good. So this is, if you have played like arcade racers back when I was growing up, you probably get serious vibes of like virtual racing, Outrun, Daytona 500, if you ever played any of those from Sega. And yeah, this group of us, we just love racing, just love the thrill of it. And of course, I'm not a professional race car driver. I never will be. So I live vicariously through gaming here. Now, in terms of what we wanted to do in this, friendly competition, you might say, Hotshot Racing has modes called Grand Prix, which, if you're familiar with racing, that should sound pretty simple. It's a collection of a series of races, each with 4 tracks. Some are very more notoriously difficult than others, but we decided to have a little fun with this and actually treat this like a racing competition. And so, with a bunch of Linux geeks here and techies, we wanted to set up the rules for this. The rules were similar to what the game itself does when you play it, is that if you finish first, you get 12 points. You kind of see the breakdown towards the bottom there. But we wanted to make this an even playing field for all of us. So, yeah, some of us have favorite cars. There are 32 cars to choose from, each with different statistics on speed, drift, balance, and the like. But we wanted to even this out by making everybody race the same car for each race, and that this car would be randomly selected. Keep that in mind later on. And of course, we would also do 2 versions of these tracks. We would do the normal orientation and the mirrored orientation just to spice things up a little bit. And we would tally up the points using, again, this kind of scoring metric we have on the left here. And the racer with the most points would win. Pretty straightforward, right? I would say so. Now, it would probably be enough if we just wanted to have fun on the Sundays that we were doing this, albeit we are being a bit techie about it. We got this random car selection paradigm. And as I mentioned, we want to collect and present the actual racing results. Well, as the data scientist and stats, geek in the group, I saw some opportunities here. What are those opportunities, you might say? It's a job for Shiny, of course. And already a few of the members were over engineering some of their setup for this. So I couldn't let them have all the fun. I needed to get into some of this engineering too. So I'm about to show you is not just one, not just two, but three apps I created solely for this online racing league, but each of them have taught me different lessons about Shiny development, and the tools I can use, and also just what the purposes they can be for. Sometimes we think it's just for others in our organization or others in our teams to consume results where they don't want to do any programming, but Shiny can be used for much more than just that. So we're about to have some fun here and look at some apps. The first one we're going to look at is the random car picker. And so let me transition to my development environment. This is always that's the wrong one. It is this one right here. Let's ignore the code for a second. But if you look at my slides, you online, you can get the link to it on shinyapps.io. But if you want to look at the looking of this first, this does not look like a typical Shiny app. It's got theme powered by BSLib. But when we were first, thinking about this racing league, about randomly picking cars, I was just using the sample function in R from like 1 to 32, and I kind of put a number next to each car. But what fun is that? We wanted to actually make this fun for the audience that was watching this and kind of give it a little suspense for the selection for the audience to look at. And all these races, by the way, were streamed on YouTube. So we were able to kind of have some fun live streaming with this as well. But the app is pretty straightforward. You got three buttons. We're going to hit the launch button now, and this is going to show a little funny Vegas style selector there, or it's just a image viewer. And now it's selected the driver's Zing with the Sentinel car. And then I show the selection on the bottom here. And then this is where Martin, who was streaming all of this from his computer, would actually show my app in the stream, hit that button just like I did, and then we'd all pick our cars and be on our way. I thought that was just super, super fun, to have that a Shiny app being broadcast live in a gaming league. But okay, let's dive into this app a little more. Is this just for fluff, or what's kind of the tech behind this? So let me go to my other viewer here. Okay. Sorry, I had too many windows, way too many windows, folks. All right, let's see, where is it? There we are. So under the hood, as I mentioned, BSLib is used to create the theming of this app. This was a straight up Shiny app. It wasn't using one of the other UI packages, but BSLib gave me a very easy way to make the aesthetics of the app conform to what we would see in the actual game itself with the fonts and the colors and that little background you saw there. Super easy for someone like me who is still trying to level up their skill set with Shiny and UI design. And you can see actually in the slide right now, this is that same widget is being used to cycle through the car drivers and the cars themselves. But in the app, it had to be a little more sophisticated than this because we needed to keep track of certain events, such as when the user logged on to the app. We didn't want to show anything. Then when they hit that launch button, we want to use things like reactive values to detect that, okay, we're going to show like the little image viewer slide, back and forth for about 4 seconds or so. But still, the answer is already done in the back end. We're still kind of doing this for show, where we're hiding the actual result from the screen until that, say, 4 seconds are up. And then we will stop the carousel from sliding around. And then we will show what, in essence, in the back end was a sample function what it came up with for the car and the driver. So again, this is probably the most over-engineered random selector I've ever done and probably ever will do, but it made for good streaming content for the game itself. And the carousel package that is driving this is called Slick R. It's a wrapper to, I believe, the Slick JavaScript library. And this has been written by Jonathan City, who coincidentally was a former guest on the Shiny Developer Series. Now, who is this app for? This wasn't really for the audience that was watching us racing. This was actually for us, the actual racers themselves. So this is one instance where, again, a Shiny app can be just as productive for you as a developer as it can be for, the audience or who you're sharing the results with, sharing statistical results with, and everything like that. So that's app number one. Let's move on to app number two. Is we had a small issue. So unfortunately, HotShot Racing was a game that did not think about geeks like us that would actually want to grab the data dynamically from the game itself, i.e., the racing results, and to actually do some analysis with it. There are no APIs for it. There are no like hacks you can do to the game to trick it. So what we wound up doing is at the end of each race, myself and my fellow racer Yannick were actually both doing dynamic data collection, where we would take a screenshot, like you're seeing in the snapshot of the app here, and we would use various software to import the image and then extract via OCR the actual racing numbers. And so I will show you what that app looks like now. Hopefully I find the right one. So here it is here. And now notice the UI is very utilitarian. Why is that? This app was never meant to be used by the audience. This app was meant to be used, frankly, by me during the competition itself. I needed to be simple to the point, but get the job done. And so the way the app works is I browse to I didn't have it pre-cached here, but you're about to see all my many files on my system here. But I'm going to go to this local copy of the repo here, Shiny Racing, images, and I should have racing results right here. I open this up, and now you can see the image is right here. And then on the right, you see a table that has almost the correct numbers. So what happened is a simple file input to grab the image. We're using a package called Image Magic, which wraps the Image Magic library to import the PNG of the screenshot into R itself. And then I use the Tesseract package, which wraps on Google's OCR Tesseract engine to actually scrape out the text and of the positions, the names, and then the finishing times, and then present that to me in the app itself. But here's the problem though. It's not always correct. Like the second number here, that should not be 595, that should be 393. So how am I going to on the fly without hopping to like Excel or some other spreadsheet software manually handle this? Well, in the app, I have this little checkbox called edit table where now I've swiped in that text that was scraped into a nice widget called Excel R. And now what I can do is in this Excel R widget, it's kind of like an Excel clone. I can update those numbers in real time. And for most of them, they're correct. But for those ones that just were not quite correct, simply edit that out. Make sure that any bad rows are taken out. So I could just reduce the number of rows. Now we got that away. Still have to redo my edit. It's not quite perfect, but this saved me a boatload of time during the competition that after I took the screenshot, quickly grab this data. And then once I'm done editing this, I hit an upload button and that would send it to an online repository because I want to use this data later on in different situations. So real-time data collection, but this app, again, was not really meant for a general audience. This is meant for me to kind of pull double duty as a racer and the resident statistician doing the data collection and the eventual results. Again, completely over engineered, but it was a great learning experience at the same time, I dare say. All right, get back to my slides here. So I've basically narrated a bunch of this already, but just to reinforce, Magic to import the screenshots, Tesseract to extract the results, Excel R was giving me that Excel like layout, and then the pins package was help from our studio was helping me store this data in an online repository. Now, last but certainly not least, we've got these numbers. What are we going to do with it? Well, of course, we're going to visualize it. We're going to make a dashboard out of it. So now get ready for a completely over the top dashboard that would actually be available to anybody in the audience that was following along with our racing adventures, where they could see in real time what the up to date results were. So let's go to that. Again, I have way too many windows here. But again, the link is in the slides to see the deployed version of this. But here we are. This app is written with BS4 Dash as kind of the dashboard tooling by David Grandin and styled with the Fresh package to, again, achieve a somewhat similar effect to BS Lib to theme this the way that I wanted in the application itself. But this is where it gets fun. If we're going to talk about racing metrics, let's visualize it like it's actual racing. And that's where we have these great widgets powered by our next speaker, coincidentally enough, John Cohen's eCharts for R package to give it this great kind of racing, dashboard of a car look for these different metrics like margin of victory, top 3 separation, season progress, and these little odometer like widgets for the, say total racing hours and the like. And I always like to enhance my UIs for this whenever they're more customer facing. We can collapse this and we're done with it. And then this is probably one of the most fun parts was showing the racing progress with a cool little animation powered by Plotly. So I haven't told you who won yet. So let's see from ourselves in this little dynamic way of who won this competition. You can see the names of our nicknames of our racers here. Let's go ahead and hit play. Ooh, it's getting close, getting close. Oh, there's a few that are at the front, but look who's pulling away. Haha, it's me. Yay, I won the whole thing. But it went down to the wire. Now, that was a fun little visual powered by Plotly. But like any sports site that would analyze sports metrics or present that to the user, we got to have a leaderboard here. And this is where Shiny and Reactable are some of my favorite combinations of packages now, because you can have this high level information right here, but then you can hit this little caret here to get more detailed information. Nesting additional content in your presentation of results can be a great way to enhance your application's user interface. So here, looking at my statistics for each Grand Prix and each orientation, you can kind of see how things played out at the end. But because we're in Shiny, we can cross-link a row selected here with more metrics because, again, we're going to be completely over the top with this. Again, eCharts for R powered histograms and box plots with tooltips out of the box that I think look pretty neat and pretty. This didn't look out of place with something that came from the game itself. So all of this was great ways to kind of learn how we can enhance the user experience of, again, an online racing league, but teaching me some skills that I could use later on for my apps in production. So I had a lot of fun creating those 3 apps. And again, we'll recap under the hood. There's a lot under the hood on this one. I won't read these verbatim because you heard about some of these already, but the slides have links to each of these packages as well. So wrapping up here, how did all this kind of fit together in a bigger picture? And like, what did I really learn from doing this that I can apply to my daily work? Well, for each of these, I set myself up for success from the beginning, even though it's tempting just to quickly scrabble up some shiny code just to get it done. I wanted a consistent development environment. In this case, it was powered by Golem, but also powered by a containerized setup with Docker so that each app kind of had its own unique reproducible environment. That was really something I'm trying to put in practice a lot more in my daily projects. Another quote that I've had in the dev series a few times is that it's never just shiny. And in these apps, each of them hook into a handful of really powerful additional packages that either greatly enhance the shiny experience or just simply greatly enhance the application in general. So being able to find where these are and to be able to incorporate these effectively in your app is a real win for these more production grade settings that you may find yourself in down the road. And then the last thing I'll mention is you just saw how three apps each had potentially different audiences or different purposes. I have learned the hard way that if you don't get that nailed down right away, you could be in for some rude surprises as you think your application is almost done. And then you find out the customer wasn't really looking for that kind of thing. That can be a demoralizing, it can make a lot of rework. So, knowing the intent, knowing the purpose of what these apps are for is huge to enhancing the user experience of everything and your development life for that matter. So that was a sprint, if you will, throughout my Racing League exploits. You can find links to where I'm at online over here. I am on Twitter. I am doing the Shiny Developer Series, as we saw that great special episode yesterday. I'm also showing my development chaos and live streams occasionally on Twitch. And you can also hear my voice on the R podcast and the R Weekly Highlights podcast. But that's what I've got. I've crossed the finish line, so I'm thank you again for having me here in this great session. And I'm happy to take any questions that have come along the way.
Hey, Eric, thank you so much for that presentation. I thought this was really great. So just in the chat here, it doesn't look like we have a lot of questions right off the gate. If anybody has a question typed in but not sent, let's get that going. We did have a comment from Tan saying, turns out this whole talk was about flexing on the league. I think that's just hilarious. But what I took away from this talk more than anything is that sometimes as Shiny developers, we think that what we're doing is building data dashboards. And I myself, for years, every project I took on became this huge, big thing. And if I was going to approach this the way you were, I would make that all into one app. But I really like how the way that you present this is that each application can be isolated, it can be for a single purpose, and most importantly, it can be fun. It doesn't have to have a statistical output or anything like that. And I was wondering if you wanted to expand on that idea or talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, it's something that I'm finding myself in a lot lately. Is when you get these projects that have a bigger scope. I have learned the hard way that when I try to do everything at once or in one place, sometimes that can lead to more technical debt, and frankly, it can lead to more, harder ways to bring in a team of developers for these situations. I think having architecture kind of design philosophy of having simpler apps or different pieces or components of a bigger picture can make maintaining things a lot easier and giving your users more flexibility to pick and choose certain parts of the processing. So the lessons I've learned from this, I'm actually applying in some very fun projects at work where we're revamping our clinical simulation tool suite, where we used to have one massive, and I mean massive application to try to do everything. It just was not sustainable. Now we've broken that up into fit for purpose, our packages and Shiny apps, and our users are so much happier with being able to choose the way they want to use this. But it also really spoke to who is the main audience of this. We thought we knew it before, but then as we got more experience of it, we realized that some wanted more flexibility than others, and being able to have that modular approach, not just within an app with Shiny modules, but that modular approach from an architecture standpoint can be absolutely critical to making this a more productive experience for both the customers and you as a developer. So that was a great learning for me throughout this.
Fantastic. Thank you, Eric. So one other question that came through is, where are you actually storing the data? I'm assuming that the answer is the pins package, but can you expand upon why you chose to do that and if you're storing your data in any other sources?
Yeah, so the pins package was a really convenient way to map. In my case, I actually had two methods of it. I would store those results that you saw from the data collection app after I clean it up a bit. Those were sent via the pins to two places. I had an object storage that was Amazon S3 compliant, where I sent the RDS files and other metadata that the pins package produces to those what amount to S3 buckets. And then over midway through it, I also, just because I was extra paranoid about losing results, I also sent that to a GitHub repository. So there's a separate GitHub repo that literally has CSVs of each of the Grand Prix results. And then what was nice is, as I was making the dashboard kind of more in the real time of the season, I used pins in that package to retrieve that same data. And then in the end, once I had it all done, the league was done, I just threw the CSV in there. But during the competition, it was a great way to have those stats kind of updated in real time as we went forward. And the pins package was a great way to make that real time updating as frankly painless as possible for the dashboard consuming all of that.
Thank you for expanding upon that, Eric. And I hope for anybody out there, if you haven't heard of the pins package, it's a really useful tool and it can really simplify a lot of things for you. We got another question here from Aaron Clark asking how many people are tuning in to watch your league race on Sundays? And if I wanted to do that, where do I find that?
Yeah, so unfortunately, they're not happening now. The ironic part is this game that we were playing, the online functionality broke just before we were about to start the next season late last year, and they have not fixed it yet. So we've been looking at other ways to do this. We've had our eyes on another game called Trackmania, which ironically does have a much better way to collect data from. It's very much a racing game that's tailored to geeks who want to grab that stuff more dynamically like me. We haven't organized the season yet. We've all had, this was all done in our free time. So this is all quite busy. But this took place last year, a little over a year ago last year, over 5 weeks. But we do hope to get back to racing again. As far as how many people watched, I won't kid anybody. We weren't exactly viral on YouTube with this. We had a handful, maybe 10, 20 people who would tune in live. It was basically our friends and from the community. There was one fun aspect. My mom and brother watched one from when they were remote, and they had a kick out of watching me fumble my way across the finish line.
Fantastic. So we just got a comment from Konstantinos. We saw Eric incorporating several different widgets and packages into each app. What is your creative process to come up with this, and what do you use in each app, and how do you keep track of? Sorry, there's something blocking this in my screen. Thank
Oh,
you
I
very
think I
much.
see the rest of it. How do
Yeah,
I keep track of what widgets are available? So this is kind of twofold. First, I absolutely love the world of Shiny. That's a big reason why I'm here, and I try to keep up to date with the various repositories that are being developed. And to be honest, the connections I made with the developer series and talking to folks like your next speaker and David Grandin and Colin and many others, I now have at least more insight into their creative process, and that helps me open my eyes a bit into what this ecosystem is. With respect to HTML widgets, there is an HTML widgets gallery that's available online. You can Google for that HTML widgets R gallery. That literally shows all these great widgets that I plug into all my apps, like Reactable, that Slick R widget that I had in the card picker, DT, and the eCharts for R. There are many that are listed on that site. So I highly recommend finding that one as well. I know some people have mindset of, are there like such a thing as too many dependencies? It's kind of a case by case basis, but in my opinion, if someone has done the hard work of wrapping a very useful library, there should be nothing stopping me from using it. I just want to manage the version of that package I'm using with RM and making sure that I can reproduce that environment anytime. So I think managing that is an art that comes from experience. But again, for me personally, the Golem framework was a huge step to making that reproducible along with RM to manage the versions of those.
Fantastic. Thank you, Eric. And the HTML widgets gallery, if anybody's never gone to it, like go pull that up. I can't even say how many times I've gone up and loaded that whole app just to look through all that. Well, Eric, thank you once again so much for being on this presentation with us. I think we're just about out of time here. For anybody out there who might want to get in contact with you or learn more about you, what would be the best way to do that?
Yeah, probably follow me on Twitter at the Rcast, and I'm a curator for the R Weekly project. So every week we release a new issue of all the great resources online, some of which definitely help in my development, like today, hearing about what's going on in the community. So I would say rweekly.org and at the Rcast, and yeah, follow me on Twitch if you want to see me do all this live and stumble my way through hacking on Shiny.
Thanks for that, Eric. And I'll just make a comment to anybody who hasn't been to Eric's YouTube channel. He puts out an incredible amount of content, especially your live coding sessions. I found those to be so much fun. There was one week in December where you put out like 7 hours of video in 1 week, and I was just like, how did you do this? But yeah, once again, Eric, thank you so much. You're an absolute legend in this community, and we really appreciate having you here.
Oh, you're far too kind, but thank you, everybody. I'll be enjoying the rest of the conference very much.